Hello, and welcome to a series of videos. There might be 5 or 6 of these, because Zeppelin has a lot of songs, where I'm going to describe my favorite points in the songs. Meaning, and I think most of us will, well, there'll be some bottom glorious moments, and then just some glorious moments that I always thought were terrific. So, we're going to do this a little bit alphabetically. Well, actually alphabetically, because it'll just be easier. Of course, then we'll start with Achilles' Last Stand, which was released on the companion disc called it's either Jesus spit it out. It's either St. Tristan's Sword, maybe. But anyway, Achilles. It's not. What the hell? I was just listening to it. But anyway, Achilles' Last Stand. Now I've said if you go back, I have a drum video for Achilles' Last Stand. If you go back and listen to Achilles' Last Stand, listen to the very intro on the upfade. It really is that is just such a classic, and I do believe Achilles' Last Stand led the album off. Presence. 1970. Well, I think they recorded it in 75. Did it come out in 76? I think it did. Just listen to that upfade. I mean, that's just so glorious. It's like, ah! And and I've said this before, you can hear Bottom sort of, he taps the shoulder, this da 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 da. He does that. Da, 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 da. I think that's just so glorious. And you can hear delay, there's a delay on the guitar coming up, and you can hear a very slight delay. Sometimes they'll put a tight delay in the drums just to thicken them up. Right? Beautiful. But there's so many points in that song that are so golden. The drums first come in, right? Just chug-a-log. I mean, it was so good that Michael DeRosier of Heart must have thoroughly loved the tune, because he did a damn good job of playing his version of the chug-a-lug beat on what the hell is the song they did? Barracuda. Okay? But Achilles' Last Stand, as we know, that blindingly fast fill that Bonham plays, the 16th note triplets around the kit. Now, as we know, and I've never been able to Bonham had the ability to do single stroke rolls in a French grip way, which we'd see all over the joint on the early Zeppelin stuff. When you see like the Super Show, that color video, or maybe it's probably filmed. He does it early on all the time in the footage. You don't really hear him do it anymore live after, I think, like 71 or 2. But these, you know what I mean? Like, he'd do these super fast fills where he wouldn't be like playing through the head. He'd almost barely be touching the head. Like, da da ba 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 ba, right? And he'd end it with the bass, just a beautiful thing. But in Achilles, I think he uses that same mechanism around the frickin' drums, and we all know that. And I gotta say, I think I pretty cleverly kind of masked the fact, well, not even I actually very poorly masked the fact that in my Achilles video, that I cannot reproduce that at the proper speed. I just frickin' can't, because I'm still playing my singles still aren't all that fast. But it is just a golden moment. When you hear that, right? And even kind of slightly rushes in. I mean, he's going fast, right? A beautiful thing. And then we move on to, as a little later in the song, and he does, sort of in the same spot in the next verse, he does the same thing, but instead of okay, which is pretty much what Michael DeRosier then copies in Barracuda, or does. By the way, I think if you listen to the drums only on Barracuda, you can find it. DeRosier is a great drummer. You can tell definitely influenced by the Achilles' Last Stand drum performance, which probably had just come out, probably right before they were recording Barracuda, I would think. So, but then, there's more in Achilles' Last Stand. And remember, these are my opinions. You can make comments below. You can say, well, I disagree with you, or, you forgot about this one or this. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a forum. Let's all air out our... Let's just have a catharsis of coolness of Zeppelin moments. Okay, so then in Achilles' Last Stand, so you have that, and then... and then you have the those are really cool. It really is like a... Did they call it the campaign? What the hell is called the campaign? You got to forgive me here. I mean, I'm a diehard Zeppelin fan, but I'm also 46, and so much of what I used to know so clearly and goldenly, perfectly, and so Zeppelin geeky has kind of gone out the window. What was the campaign? Was that The Song Remains the Same, I think? Anyway. And then another golden moment is when we get into... right? And right about here, there's that lone crash. A nice 18-inch, probably 2002 medium, just out sort of in the open of the soundscape, almost like you'd see a big field, right? Like in a movie or a beautiful picture, and there'd be a beautiful old oak tree just standing out there by itself. Na na na, nice and pretty. Na na na, just keeps going. Na na na, na na na, na na na, still going. Na na na, ba ba da, oh, beautiful. Perfectly, just there wasn't a whole busload of these, just right there. Okay, but right before that happens, you can hear sort of a cool effect. I'm not sure if it's a kind of like a maybe an echo, sort of like an artifact of like the delays or something. But right when they go into that part, you hear, and it sort of fades out. I find that in the Zeppelin scheme of things, again, to me, 50% of Zeppelin is the sound. And that, it's just so cool when you kind of bust into that. Maybe it's intentional. I don't know. Maybe, if it is, I think it's genius. But it might be serendipitous. But anyway, so we go, and then, okay? And then as we get into... I think he might be hitting chimes there at the end, sort of shoring up the shung shung shunga shungas. Okay, now let's go into All My Love. All My Love. You know what? When Coda when In Through the Outdoor first came out, I remember I bought it. That was right at the beginning of my Zeppelin phase. Well, my lifelong Zeppelin phase, where I heard All My Love. And I remember thinking, like, God, that voice sounds like Led Zeppelin. But to me, at the time, being probably 11 or 12 at the time, the backing track to me just didn't sound Zeppelin-y. I mean, I shouldn't, if I was more into the drums at the time, I should have immediately recognized the sound of the drums. And that was a song that Robert Plant, as we know, you can look up, wrote for his son, who had passed away a couple of years before. They were out on tour, and his son got I think like a bacterial infection, and died in a couple of days. And I mean, devastating to Robert Plant, the band. And I don't think John Paul Jones, I don't think Jimmy Page and Bonham really maybe wanted it on the record. No, I don't think they were meant to insult Plant, but I think they just thought it might have been too light. Just didn't fit in with the rest of the running order of the album. I might be wrong about that, but I'm fairly sure. But drum-wise in there, right? The hi-hat, well, actually, right when it comes in, just the sound of the bass drum and the snare, and very clearly there, you can hear a pair of 15-inch sound edge hi-hats, which I would imagine are probably 2002 B8 Peisty, but they could be 602s. You never know with the Bonzotronic. It's hard to tell. Also, too, when he does that, that double. He does. He does the. Oh wait, no, it's not there. It's still in the verse. If you're a diehard Zeppelin fan, you know. But the neat thing about that, the first stroke is right on, and again, he doesn't bury it. The second stroke's just a little softer, like. Oh, it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, that is genius all the way. Really, I see, just when I think of Zeppelin, I think genius. Even though that sometimes it might have been heavy-handed to a lot of people, or they thought it was vulgar or whatever, it's a genius piece of artwork across the board with everybody in the band, and especially that Jimmy Page is a genius. I mean, God love him. Again, Jimmy Page, if you can make one of these Led Zeppelin, that'd be terrific. Might be 10 times the size. It would be marvelous. Also with pictures. Imagine pictures that maybe one of the roadies took setting the drums up at Musicland in Munich. Wouldn't that be cool if like the drums are just being just pictures like that? They must exist, right? We have various pictures of Zeppelin in the studio where you see Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and Bonham playing like percussion for A Whole Lot of Love, right? And there's those pictures that came out later where you see Bonham kind of setting up his drums in the 1969. He's holding like his 602s, and you see the cymbal stand. And there's another picture of them at Olympic where you see Jimmy Page in the shot. You see Bonham's his natural maple kit, the 26, 14, and what looks like just the 18. Because I think when he got the kit, that's what he got first. I don't think he played the 16 right away. Or you know what I mean? You see that sometimes even at even at the Danish TV. I think it's just the 26, 14, 18. Double check that. I don't think there's 2 floor times there. But even in this picture at Olympic, I blew my nose with toilet paper. Do I have any white cottony stuff on my face? But you can see the drums there, and I think that's actually when they were recording Since I've Been Loving You. Because you can see Bonham's drums set up. There's one ride, hi-hats, and one crash. Okay? You can see a Hammond B, I think it's a B3 or a C3, sitting off to the right with John Paul Jones's bass, if I'm not mistaken, resting right on the bench. So I think they were tracking Since I've Been Loving You that day. But there's not a whole hell of a lot of pictures of them in the studio. There's some pictures that Eddie Kramer took of them when they were recording at Stargroves. And at Headley Grange, I think they have some too. But I don't think Eddie Kramer was at Headley Grange. I think he was at Stargroves, I think, with those guys. Maybe he was, I don't know. Look it up. But you see Bonham, and they're sort of one of them's him playing, the other one's him listening to a playback, kind of. And I think Eddie Kramer sells these pictures, or prints them. And Bonham's just he has that menacing look on his face, kind of like, he's like, that look. Bonham always looked like he was 35, even probably when he was 15. But you can see his green sparkle Ludwig right there. It's kind of neat. But there's got to be plenty of pictures of Zepp in the studio setting up, or I'd murder somebody to see those, wouldn't you? I'd love to see those. I think it'd be, and there is a fuzzy picture of Polar Studios, an ad for Polar Studios, ABBA's studio where they did In Through the Opera, where they took the promo picture there when Zeppelin was in recording, and you can see 2 kits. You can see Bonham's green sparkle kit off to the left. You see some timbales for like Fool in the Rain. You can see his big kettle drums. Probably got new late model Dresden series kettle drums from Ludwig. But you can also see what I'm told is his silver. He had a silver sparkle, 26, 15, 16, 18, or even maybe 18, 20, which you can't tell if it's that in the picture. Or people always said maybe he never recorded with the stainless. They conceivably could be the stainless. You can't tell by the picture. I mean, you can't. Because it's not a high-res one. Somewhere that ad exists, probably in a magazine, where you'd be able to clearly see, right? And I think that the stainless steel might have had mock lugs, but I forget. I don't know. I had talked over the years to a fellow named Bill Townsend, who had passed away, who claimed to have some of Bonham's original drums and stuff. Some people said he didn't, and other people said he did. The amber and some of the green sparkle. Anyway, but he had told me a good 10, 12 years ago, he's since passed away, the late Bill Townsend, that in fact, the silver sparkle, and I thought he said they were mock lugs, but maybe not. Anywho, So again, so all my love, pick up there, and then we have the before the keyboard solo. Before the that, listen right before that. It sounds like the synthesizer. In the synthesizer, there's a weird sort of like. You can kind of hear that. Just listen, honest to God. Die Hard Zeppelin gigs only. You can actually hear that before he goes into the solo. It's a weird artifact, like it's like a little just sort of synthesizer-y sound or some sound there, which I always thought was really cool. Whenever I'd hear that, I'd be like, ah, there's that sound. And then there's a big, the neat thing is there was a big, huge, they play that out really long at the end, which you can now find on YouTube. The greatest invention in the whole world, besides Nat's chocolate chip cookies. They really go way out, and at the end's almost like all of my love, like it's almost like ba ba ba, except that they do the fade out on the album, right? And there's a cool thing Bonham does sometimes, ba boom boom ba. Does it, and I wasn't, because in the context of the final mix, it's hard to hear really what he did, but you can hear, like I said, I think on that really long one where the effects, the mix is a little lighter. I think he's just going. Okay. So. Okay. I love that part. Okay. Oh yeah, and then the. That's beautiful too. You know that if you're the diehard Zeppelin geek like me, you know exactly where that is. Right. So now we'll move on. See, this is taking a lot more time than I thought. Okay, and then there's some songs I'm going to skip over just because I mean, even though they're all terrific, every Zeppelin song is like, Babe, I'm Going to Leave You. I have on here. I mean, it's. You know what I love about Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You? I mean, the drums are great, right? I mean, it's very raw, but there's other stuff off Zeppelin one I'd like to talk about. Is at the end, that's just awesome. It's almost like you almost hear a whistle behind, like a Western kind of thing, right? Honest to God, if you think about it. Okay, now we're gonna do Black Country Woman. No, we're not. Love the tune. Skip on right to Black Dog. Black Dog is so cool. Like they were talking about, John Paul Jones had that thing where he wanted right the it's like a little. It's sort of like it plays through the thing. And he plays it just like that through that. If you could hear my da-na-na-na-na-na-na, that's really neat, but that messed up Bonham for a while. John Paul Jones said it took a while for Bonham really to sort of kind of nail that. And you can also, too, that is good, but like, I always assumed it was like Bonham sort of between the take, kind of sitting there like. But apparently it is a cue, right, to when they come in, because Plan's going to redo the vocals, right? So you need some kind of a cue, or probably redo the vocals, because he might have been singing different vocals or whatever, didn't like the sound of it, or let's move on or whatever. So, but then Black Dog is so cool across the board, and there'll be a lot of stuff I'll leave out, which you can chime in and put in a comment below, like the Brady Bunch thing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that would be Black Dog. But there's so many cool things in Black Dog. Dun-dun-dun. I mean, the sound of the guitar solo is so cool. It's such a fat sound. But also, too, you have the, Bonham does the, he throws a couple of those in. And then these. And then this. It's just beautiful. Right at the outro, too. It is just so beefcake, right? And let's move on to Bonzo's Monstro. Recorded in Montreux, Switzerland, I think in 1976. I don't know what they were doing there. They didn't play any shows in 1976. Maybe they could have, I guess, but I don't recall any. But they were in Montreux, Switzerland, probably recording something, and maybe Bonham was like, hey, do you mind? And Jimmy Page sort of helped him out with it. So Bonham, of course, I'm sure tracked with the drum kit all the way through, and then I think also doubled it, or at least parts on the exact same kit, and then also overdubbed all kinds of other drums, you know, like the... I mean, that's like heavily... and then, of course, other percussion on there. And I think that... I don't know if that's a heavily treated steel drum, or if it's... but maybe just a keyboard, you know, Jimmy Page... put on. But you know what I think would be really cool? I always thought this would be really neat. If there was if you could hear, I'd love to hear a Bonzo's Montreux without all the really kind of polished synthesizer touch-ups that Page, that they put on in mixing. With the exception of the like the little bit of that, remember the phaser that Plant used to sing out of all the time, and then they used in Cashmere on the drums, but also Bonham, then they'd put that on the drums sometimes live, 75, 77-ish. But wouldn't it be great to hear? I think it would. Just Bonzo's Montreux without the keyboard or the guitar, or without the treatments, just still raw and beefcakey sounding, but just maybe a little more natural. I thought that'd be terrific. Okay, I'm going to make this one short. Well, okay, now we have Boogie with Stu. Boogie with Stu is phenomenal. I remember... first hearing that on Houses of the Holy. Oh, it was beefcake. I don't know what delays or how they really get. I remember Robert Plant talking about how they sat around a table like with cups, like smacking the table, so they just sit there and sort of get like the rhythm bed that way. And then you have Robert Plant really singing more or less the Richie Valens. I mean, it's pretty much "Ooh My Head," I think. Na 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 bum 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 ding ding, and I think the keyboard is Ian Stewart of Rolling Stones, the late Ian Stewart of Rolling Stones, who I think also played the piano on Rock and Roll. Boogie with Stu. Boogie with Stu might have been recorded for Zeppelin 4, maybe. I don't remember that. Maybe not. But Boogie with Stu. No, wait a minute here. Boogie with Stu is on Physical Graffiti, right? What the hell's the matter with me? I'm sorry. Boogie with Physical Graffiti. But it is just the... Yeah. I think that is the coolest thing in the world. And you hear the, right? I always thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Actually, to hear studio chatter on a record when I was a kid, that's the first time I've heard it. I was like, that's the coolest thing in the world. So, Boogie with Stu. Now we have Bring It On Home. Bring It On. Now, for me personally, in years past, I used to listen a lot. I sort of had an overload of Zeppelin 2. It's sort of a place where my cousins owned a laundromat, and we used to go there all the time. And we'd always put in the 8-track Led Zeppelin 2 tape, and I kind of was sated with it. I was almost like too much Zeppelin 2, so there's still a part of me. Bring It On Home isn't one of my favorite. It's a great tune. It's just not one I would normally listen to. Okay, actually live, when you hear the live bootleg, I love listening to it live, but the studio I just kind of got sated with. And then Bron-yr-aur Stomp. That turnaround can be, because sometimes you think there's an extra space. Like you think there'd be like an extra eighth note or an extra quarter note before the guitar kicks back in. In fact, I played with the Led Zeppelin band where the guitar player always had a real hard time with that turnaround, which is only natural, because sometimes it's Jimmy Page and Bonham, the Zeppelin guys like to do. Sometimes they'd like to have little mind screws with some of the tunes, where like they'd come in on the upbeat, those types of things. So that's sort of one of those. Which, by the way, I know there's an instrumental they did of that. which clearly sounds like it's the drums of Zeppelin 4. There's that sound of Zeppelin 4 drums that you find all over Zeppelin 4. Stairway to Heaven, Rock and Roll, Poor Tom, which was recorded for Zeppelin 4, but put on Coda. Down by the Seaside. Down by the Seaside. What the hell was that on? That was on Physical Graffiti too, but that was recorded for Zeppelin 4. No Quarter was recorded for Zeppelin 4. There's just a really nice, there's just a really pretty sound there. And all over Zeppelin 4 you hear the giant beats. I mean, you just totally hear them. Anyway, so we'll move on. Wait a minute, what did I say? Bron-yr-aur stomp. And you can listen again to there's sort of an instrumental they do with drums. They're probably maybe going to do it with that. So you can hear that on YouTube. I don't know what they call that though. There's a term, there's a name for that song. Might be Jennings Farm Blues. Anyway, and then we'll end this one a little. Well, no, we can carry on. How long am I going? Is this even recording? Yes. Alrighty. So then there's Bron-yr-aur, just the instrumental of Physical Graffiti, which is just so beautiful. Wait, Bron-yr-aur Stomp is on Led Zeppelin 3. Sorry if I said it was on Physical Graffiti, if it ended up on it. But yes, it was on Zeppelin 3. Bron-yr-aur, such a pretty tune. That it's just so pretty. The sound of that guitar is just so pretty. Especially the end, and then the strum at the end, right? It is just such a pretty. It's just so pretty, and I remember I'd heard it on Physical Graffiti, and we used it at record player on vinyl. But I remember it was always so cool then hearing it in the Zeppelin movie. In the song, I mean, it's the same. They do it kind of like as they were, they went back after the 75 or 6 and they shot more footage in New York, like those scenes of the city, and where they're going into Madison Square Garden, where they sort of slide the dolly with the camera on it into the garden. But I always thought it sounded so rich on the, you listen to this through the speakers of the vinyl or through headphones. It's just such a beautiful sounding recording. Okay, Candy Store Rock. We're moving into the C's. Candy Store Rock, if I'm not mistaken, it was recorded for Presence because it was on Presence. That's one, though, that sometimes I'd get confused and I think might have been on Coda. But yeah, on Presence. Candy Store Rock is just... Presence is it's just the most biting Zeppelin album. There's like a stridentness to it. We're like, Zeppelin's not in the mood to like F around. Bottoms with his fills and stuff's kind of like, like just the violence, sort of like the Robert De Niro kicking of the guy at the bar in the mobster movies. Candy Store Rock, just the sound of it. They got, for as much as I think they recorded more, it's more, Presence is more of a dead sound. They recorded at Musicland, which was in the Arabella Hotel, not motel, in Munich, and it's not there anymore. But they recorded there, and I think it was more of a dead, maybe drum sound, but that they used. I think it wasn't very much a live room sound, so much as it all that you hear on Physical Graffiti. There's my air conditioner kicking in because it's hot today. But Candy Store Rock is just, oh baby, baby. That's just a classic sort of mind screw of Zepp. Because it's hard for you. I mean, it's just straight 2, 3, 4. Oh baby, baby, boom, ba da dum, ba 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 ba, boom, ba 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 ba, boom, ba 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 da da, boom, ba da ba ba. When you go into that, it's kind of a little bit like I said before with Bron-yr-aur Stomp, where it's like a little, even though like Bron-yr-aur Stomp, that boots 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 boots. It just seems like it's sort of in an odd time or something, but it's not. With Candy Store Rock, it's the same thing. It's in straight time, but just the way it's that they put together the bottom plays the the beat. It is just so cool. But I'm not a huge fan of the solo. But I mean of the guitar solo. But just a terrific